On a sunny hillside in the Argolid region of Greece, a heap of stones marks the ancient site of Mycenae. Today, the only sounds you can hear are the wind in the grass, the crickets chirping, and perhaps even a few tourists picking their way over the rocky outcrop.
3,000 years ago, the air would have been full of the clash of armour, the bustle of a busy market, builders chipping new blocks of stone for the city walls. In this video, we'll try to hear the story that these ancient walls would tell if only they could speak.
The first large buildings at Mycenae come from the Middle Helladic period, around 1600 BC. Even then, Mycenae stood out from other settlements. It's in a natural defensive position, with views over the landscape for miles around. The first Mycenaeans built fortifications and large, grand buildings. They traded luxury goods all over Greece and beyond. They also built elaborate graves for their ancestors.
Some of the earliest graves at Mycenae are called shaft graves because they are made up of a long shaft dug deep into the earth and lined with stones. The Mycenaeans built 2 circles of these shaft graves where they could see and visit the graves easily. Later, they would also build 9 tholos tombs, which have a long horizontal passage and a beehive-shaped chamber made of stones.
As the centuries passed, Mycenae continued to grow. If you visited the site at its peak, between 1400 and 1200 BC, you would climb up a steep hill path and walk through the famous Lion Gate, an impressive entrance that showed off the Mycenaeans' wealth, their skill at building, and their love of hunting. Or were they the lions, and you were the prey? You'd climb up the wide stone steps until you came to the Megaron, the heart of Mycenae. It would be decorated with brightly painted images of flowers, horses, and richly dressed men and women. And there would be a fire burning in the centre of the room.
The palace would be confusing at first, a labyrinth of twisting corridors, but you'd soon learn your way around. If you decided to stay in the city, you'd learn to admire the strength of the citadel's walls, 10 metres thick in some places, and rumoured to have been built by giant cyclops themselves. You might even find your way to the secret passage, an underground cistern that kept Mycenaeans supplied with water during times of siege.
But was this the real Mycenae, or is it just an illusion? Mycenae has been excavated almost non-stop for the last 150 years. The famous Lion Gate was one of the first parts of the site to be dug up and restored in 1841. We'll never be able to recreate that moment, and we'll never know what Mycenae looked like before the antiquarians and treasure hunters arrived. But artists have a good time trying to imagine what this part of the site might have looked like in its heyday.
The most famous excavation of Mycenae started in 1874. It was led by a man called Homeric, a self-taught archaeologist who passionately wanted to find the palaces and people described in Homer's stories. He achieved great things in excavating Troy, Mycenae and Tiryns, but his methods were terrible by modern standards, digging much too quickly, with a lack of meticulous recording.
Imagine if Schliemann had never found Mycenae. Would we look at the walls of Mycenae differently? If we could silence the voices of Homer and Schliemann, what could these ruins tell us instead? What do you think was the true story of Mycenae?